Hey guys, it's Talamic here with DNB Academy, and today I want to take a look at upgrading basslines, making stuff sound a little bit more interesting. So we've got this, which I've actually used in a few videos now, this little sketch. We've got some atmospheres, a little bass line, very simple, and then a drum beat. So cool. So one of the things I covered in the bassline tutorial, which I think is worth reiterating here, is adding octave jumps. So rather than doing anything to the actual bass sound itself, we're just going to be adding a few extra little notes. So these are just little jumps on the octave. So got a B, so we're going to add the higher B here. We've got the G sharp there, so we're just going to add another higher G sharp. And we'll just hear what that sounds like. Just fix the MIDI on that one. And what makes this trick really work is that we've got key tracking on our filter. So you'll see that as we jump up, the frequency also opens up. We'll just also, you can see it jumping there, so that's great. But as I said, I already covered that previously. Let's just kind of get everyone up to date. We want to create movement essentially in what we're doing. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. So first of all, I'm going to add some distortion. So we've got a separate sub layer here, literally just a sine wave, and then we've got the kind of mid reese here, and I'm adding the distortion to the mid layer. I'm going to keep the sub nice and clean to kind of carry the whole weight of everything, and then we can basically fuck up the mid bass however we want, and it's not going to impact the low end of the tune particularly. One of the cool things about this is because we have the volume fluctuations, where we've got the bass line, which is comprised of two saw waves that are detuned from each other. Because of the difference in phase, we're getting a volume oscillation, you know, just naturally with those notes. But because the volume is fluctuating, we're essentially altering the input level of the distortion. So you'll hear that on some of these louder notes, because of this fluctuation, you'll hear that as the peak goes up, it drives the distortion more, we get more kind of harmonics out of that, and then as the volume goes down, it ducks down under that distortion again, and it kind of softens up a bit. Which is cool not only because we're getting that kind of variation, but also because on the higher notes, either on those octave jumps or just naturally the higher kind of bass notes, the fluctuation is happening more, and on those lower notes it's a little bit slower and more drawn out. And we can try this with different distortion types as well. You can really hear it there, but I quite like tube. Another thing we're going to do, I'm going to add some multiband. I normally would advise against going with this on any kind of low end stuff, but this works really well. And again, accentuates and brings out a lot of that movement. So even though where we're really heavily compressing everything, those volume fluctuations are getting evened out a little bit now with the really heavy compression, which OTT or the multiband in Serum does. Because the input is fluctuating, and because we've got that distortion fluctuation happening before the input for the multiband, we're still getting those variations. Gonna add some notch filtering. So quite a wide band. You can also do this with a filter, but we're actually going to use the filter for a low pass later on. So let's just kind of create. There we go. So we're just going to create a little LFO. Doesn't matter too much what it is. We'll put that on the frequency. Slow it right down. Doesn't even have to be BPM synced. That sounds great. Let's add a little bit of hyper to it as well, which is basically just a unison. All of this is essentially just to add movement to the bass. I've seen people, you could literally modulate anything basically, and I've seen people do that, but I'm trying to keep this as sort of within Serum as I can. So we've got our low pass here, but unfortunately, because of the way that low pass is, we've lost the note, the key tracking from the filter, because it's just static. So we'll add some of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the note from there. The second is I'm actually going to adjust this to, so the lowest point will be the lowest note of the bass line and the highest point will be the highest. So you can look at this dot to see where these notes are. So if I play the lowest note in the bass line, which is this one here, just adjust that so that's on the ground, and then there we go. Do the same with the top. So now we've got and we'll add a little bit of drive to that as well. So we've got all of those kind of movement modulations that we had prior. And now the final thing I want to do is I'm just going to add a macro to our filter, call it open up, and then and the advantage of this is we can have it quite open because we're still getting a lot of the harmonics cut off from the saw waves originally right early in the chain. So we're basically just opening up the distortion and the multiband and everything else. And let's modulate that. So I like kind of opening up towards the end of notes. Do something like that maybe. And there we go. So we've gone from like a really static, straight, like 4-note bass line or whatever it was, into something that's got these jumps. We've got a bunch of different movement and things like that. And as I said, you can literally add movement with anything. So if you've got, shaper box, for example, is a great one. Filters, distortion. If you just throw a distortion on and start like automating all the different parameters, the amp in Ableton is really great for that. Auto pan is a good one. You can create some like cool. If I just put that into an actual rate. On those higher notes, you can like add volume LFOs and stuff. Yeah, so there's so much you can do. Get creative with it basically. But there you go. Any questions, let us know, and I'll see you in the next one.